Does doing the right thing come at the cost of business performance? Can ethics and profit coexist? Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast. Join host Kaumadi Gowda for candid conversations with industry luminaries as we navigate the maze of decision-making in today's global workplace. Each episode offers a window into the minds of leaders achieving remarkable outcomes while balancing diverse priorities and stakeholders. Tune in for thought-provoking insights and actionable strategies on leading with ethics every day. Because in the pursuit of excellence, integrity matters.
Our guest today is Ashish Sensarma. Born in India and raised across cultures, Ashish has spent more than 4 decades scaling brands, building businesses, and leading people. He combines a proven ability to drive profitable growth with a passion for creating lasting consumer satisfaction in the apparel, beauty, and fitness industries. A specialist in branded retailing, Ashish brings a global understanding of consumer aspirations across both mid-market and luxury segments, paired with a deep expertise in multi-channel distribution. Beyond the boardroom, Ashish serves as a mentor, advisor, and trustee, known not only for his strategic vision, but also for his integrity, empathy, and ability to inspire teams across cultures. At the heart of his career lies a unifying theme: scaling brands, extremely execution-focused, and building teams through unified cultural relevance that drives vision into results.
Ashish, thank you so very much for agreeing to do this conversation. I am extremely excited and honored to welcome you to our podcast.
Well, first of all, I think thank you, KJ, for inviting me for the human conversation. I must say that this is a very interesting topic, leadership and ethics, and your whole approach is so relevant in today's society with what we are facing that I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for inviting me to speak some words hopefully some words which mean something to some people. But thank you so much.
Absolutely. This is something that's an event I've been looking forward to as well, because Ashish, you've had such an incredible career. A C-suite leader, an entrepreneur, board advisor, investor, just to name a few. I was curious if there's a red thread that ties all of this together. Is there a driving force behind all that you do?
It's an excellent question. I think that a lot of my foundation is built on my early years. Okay, so I came from India. I'm from India. I came to Holland when I was very young, maybe 17 years old. So initially, India gave me a lot of, let's say, grounding of who I am. Yeah, especially in terms of my personality and things like that. And then I was really blessed, I would say is the right word. I worked for a company called Mexx. It was my starting of my career. And there I met leaders. I listened to them. I observed them. And a lot of what I am today is those early years of foundation. Yeah. Some people I think, have been very crucial for me to build my foundation is Mr. Ratan Chadha. He was the founder of Mexx, an absolutely incredible man. Also my brother, PK, and Mr. Adu Advani. They were the co-founders of this brand. And really a lot of my learnings, foundations, I call it, were from those early years. I spent 25 years in Mexx. Okay. And then obviously, as I moved along with life, I learned more things. I got introduced to more people. So it's always been a journey of learning, okay, from people. And when you ask me my red thread, 3 things. It's always been for me about brands. I'm just a branded guy. I just love brands because I believe that brands have a huge responsibility in the world today. That's one. We'll talk about that later. Second is about people. We are in the people's business. This is the people's business. And what ties this all together is, for me, the culture in which we operate. And when I talk about culture, I talk about working with people who are passionate. That's very important for me. No egos, critical, no egos, so that people are able to work with a team seamlessly. That's important, very important. The people I work with, I feel, are never satisfied in what they do. They always are striving to make a better, something better for themselves or for the world. Yeah? And they're all in the branding business. And I would say the part which I have never experienced or I do not know how to handle is politics, especially in the world today. Luckily, the people I work with, the people I am associated with, know that about me as a person, and know that is something which actually I'm completely at a loss with. So, to answer your question in a concise 3 words: culture, brands, and people. Without that, I think the world is not very, you don't get very far. So that's the red thread, which has always been my, whatever I'm doing, it's about that. Is this a branded business? Is there a purpose for this brand? How are the people in this business? It's a people's business. And what is the culture that this business is all about? So wherever I've worked or wherever I have tried to give my mentorship, or it's about creating that culture that I explained. So that's the red thread. Does that answer your question in a thing?
In a profound way, as a matter of fact, because in our earlier conversations as well, you've mentioned that you don't appreciate politics. And considering the size of the organizations you've built and just the sheer breadth and depth of your career, I think it's fascinating to me that you make it sound easy. So I'm excited to delve a little deeper into this process that you've perfected seemingly, because it's going to help a lot of people understand how to chart their own careers by the values they hold dear, while avoiding things they find something that's antithetical to their values, the way you have. For example, what do the terms ethics and integrity mean to you, Ashish?
Those are big words, big words. So, I mean, nobody's ever asked me that question. So, ethics for me, KJ, is all about, where we come from. The ethics have been taught. I'm talking about myself as an individual. I learned my ethics from my parents, right? My father and mother taught me what ethics were, how they behaved, what my cousins did, what my grandfather did. And those are ethics, which I learned. It's the environment of people. And for me, as I grew up, that became the kind of theory. Yeah, that is what ethics is all about. Um, there was no thing as right or wrong. It's about understanding what you felt was right and what you felt was wrong. And that I learned from my dad, from my mom, from my brothers, from my cousins, from not all my uncles, some of my uncles. Okay. But as you observed, you kind of formed an opinion for yourself, that, listen, this is all while you're growing up. All right. Where you are observing and making your own judgments and your own, let's say, opinions about what is right and what is wrong. And I think for me, a big part of ethics was when I went to a boarding school called Sherwood. I went to a boarding school in Sherwood, Nainital. I was a very young boy. There was a lot of discipline. There was a lot of do's and don'ts. But, the do's and don'ts did not bother me. It was all part of my ethical understanding of what is right and wrong in the world. So that's for me ethics. It's about theory. Yeah, and as I grew up and I got into the corporate world or into the business world, integrity for me is, what do you do with it all this? What do you do with this? Yeah, it's this this theory which you've learned all your life, how do you put it into practice? And that's a tough call. It's not easy because there's so many forces at play. And as the world is moving forward, as the world evolves, there are more challenges, more discussions, more priorities, and it's tough out there. So to remain, this word integrity is not an easy one, and so yeah, for me, if you ask me the difference between ethics and integrity, yeah, ethics for me is more about theory. Yeah, it's like a map. And integrity is like driving a car, so are you able to do it, and you've got to be extremely honest with yourself. I would even say integrity is about doing things. Let me see if I say it correctly. Doing things when nobody's watching. All right. So that's something which you need to look in the mirror yourself and say, man, are you okay? Are you all right? And at the end of the day, that's what matters, And yeah, it's I think deeply that if you follow this, integrity defines you as a person. It defines your personality. It defines your purpose. It defines you as a brand at the end of the day. And the world doesn't allow you too many mistakes. All right. So if you do wrong things, the world doesn't remember all the good that you did. The world only remembers all the bad things you did. So it's integrity is a tough one because you've got to be very consistent. Yeah. And it's a very deep question which you asked me. So, and that's why I'm blabbering about it. But really, it is something so fundamental in human life, And I'm hoping that now I've become a grandfather. By the way, I'm hoping that I've been able to teach my children this word, what integrity is, and I hope they must have learned ethics from me and my wife about how our family was brought up. And I hope that as they move along in the world and they're all grown up, they're all doing very well, that they are able to carry on this integrity from their own learnings. That's what it is. That's fundamentally the story for me.
Ashish, thank you so much. There's some really powerful truths that you shared just now. You talked about how ethics for you, the system of values you've picked up all through your childhood, watching people you admire, the school you went to, it shaped your value system. Integrity you refer to as your honesty with yourself, really seeing yourself in the mirror, asking, are you okay? Are you staying aligned with your values? You
Yeah.
also called out some powerful truths about the fact that the world gives you very few chances to mess up, and that can be big consequences to you, perhaps straying away from your ethics and integrity. And lastly, you talked about you as a leader looking at the impact you're leaving in your legacy, not just your organizations and your teams, but also to your own family and a beautiful little grandson, and more to come, I'm sure. And that's such a lovely thing. Actually, that was one of the questions that popped into my head as you were speaking, which was that in all of the things you've done, all of the huge organizations you've created and led, have you felt that there was maybe a change in the way you looked at ethics and integrity for yourself as an individual versus when you have your organizational hat on, where you now have huge teams, huge numbers of people, and organizational needs to worry about too, not just your own ethics and integrity? Were they different for you, or did they all feel roughly the same?
You can make life very complex, or you can make life very simple. And I have always said, anytime you are confronted with issues and problems, go back to your culture and to your DNA, and you will find the truth in there. Okay. So one of the things I did not mention as one of I call it DNA, as a matter of fact, my DNA is about being extremely transparent. Okay. People people accuse me that I talk a lot. And I do. And the reason I talk is I love to communicate with people. I love to communicate with my teams. Whenever I've had, the opportunity to lead people, lead teams, it's about transparency. Yeah. And in organizations, KJ, it's always been about your own style of leadership. All right. It starts from there, correct? And if you are not clear and you are not honest about this, it won't work. All right. I've had situations where, people have started talking about their colleagues in front of me. And before they come to the second sentence, I shut them off. I said, that is not something we entertain. Don't worry about somebody else's job. You do your job. That is what you are here for. I'm not asking you to do somebody else's job. You've got to do your own job. All right. And ethics and integrity is about that. It's not about a blame culture. It's about really, I've had a situation once. It's very interesting since you talking about this. We had a situation where we were running a UK business, okay, in England. And UK is a tough market for a European brand to succeed. And with a very senior executive who was running the business, reporting directly to me, and the business was struggling. All right. And so I asked him listen, would you, with all your expertise and wisdom to run the UK business, make me a simple A4, 6 points, 6 points about what we need to do to make the business successful? And I said, I don't know how long will it take you. He said, yeah, probably a few days, maybe a few hours. I said, great, that's brilliant. I mean, that shows how well you know what to do. And lo and behold, 3 hours later, I got a document, and he had a phone call with me, and the document was everything everybody else had to do to make it successful for him. And I said to the gentleman, and I said, so you're telling me that to make the market successful in the UK, everybody else has to do their job, and then you will be successful. So guess what? I don't need you. So call yours. You can say goodbye to yourself, because you just said to yourself that I'm not in. So this is a blame culture, and I just don't get it. So this is about integrity, and people accused me that how can you let a senior person like that, who we've got after so long of so many interviews, and I said, listen, it's not truthful. It's a blame culture. That's not correct. It's not correct. It's about people taking responsibility for themselves, So these are some of the examples of, but you've got to be simple. You cannot talk from two sides of your mouth. Right? So if you believe in transparency, you believe in responsibility, you believe that you are there for a particular purpose, and do your job, not somebody else's job, I hope that answers your question. I don't know, but I hope it answers your question.
It does. That sounds like a leader I want to follow. I think consistency in a leader, where the leader is very clear about their own values and they're consistent about it. Transparency, honesty, keeping your value system close to your heart in how you operate, and ensuring people understand that. For instance, when people are behaving in ways that are against your own values, you instantly shut them down and you're consistent about it. When you talk about simple, thank you for breaking down the blueprint of what makes it simple for you, because it's a profound leadership lesson that you have zero tolerance for people who are not strivers. You said your DNA is transparency. What you look for in terms of red thread is people, culture, and brands. You're consistent about it and you make sure your people know it. And when you talk about being in adherence to your value system, doesn't matter who it is in the hierarchy, if someone is not the kind of striver, the kind of honest workers, passionate workers you look for, they're out. and you're consistent about it. And that's what we all need in leaders, people who stand for something. And, it's an opt in. That's a leader I admire. I can follow them, and I know I'm safe. When I adhere to those values and I follow them with sincerity, I'm safe in their leadership. And that's, I think, what kind of leaders we need in today's world. Thank you for sharing that blueprint.
You're welcome. Remember, it's not that complex, it's simple.
I love
But
that. When you said this, and you've always said this, Ashish, that it's simple, I was even more fascinated because I was like, okay, but I hope he shares how he makes it simple. Thank you for sharing it, because I think a lot of people indeed get overwhelmed and overcomplicated in their heads, which actually brings me to the question I wanted to ask you, which was, as you observe the real world dilemmas that leaders face today, and you're saying that it's always evolving. What are your observations about the biggest challenges that business leaders have to grapple with today?
oof, um, I love your questions, actually. They're great questions. It also takes a mind like yours to ask the right questions, right? It's also that. So again, everything for me is about branding. Today's leaders are faced with short-term versus long-term. There's so many challenges with short-term priorities that it is, and not talking about a public company, I'm talking about private companies. Yeah, public companies have a huge challenge of meeting quarterly numbers. I was a CEO of a public company, and I know what it meant quarter by quarter by quarter to make sure that the short term was delivered. And it was tough. It was not easy. But we kept the focus on the long term. All right. And I'll give you a typical example, then I'll come to some very interesting observations over the past, I would say, 6, 7 years. I used to I was the CEO of a company called Woolford, amazing brand, amazing people. And yes, we were very, very focused on short-term results. At the same time, when I joined as a CEO, I discovered that there were these incredible people in the room who were in charge of developing a product which was focused on cradle to cradle. Okay, to create a product which really is about sustainability. And I was fascinated by it. Fascinated by it. I said, my God, these people they are running a business, but they all have a long-term vision, a long-term purpose of what they want to do. Imagine what this brand is all about. So I really championed their cause as a CEO. And I said, listen, guys, we need to make sure that we get the right investment, which means having a conversation with the supervisory board, having a conversation with my colleague who was in charge of finance. We need to do this. Yeah. And while delivering short-term results, I would say in the year 2017 or 16 were the first apparel company to launch a cradle-to-cradle product, which was a cradle-to-cradle bra for women. All right. So those are the short-term and long-term challenges. And today's leaders are really, really, I think, confronting with that. We hear the word sustainability, we hear the word climate control, we hear the word world's pollution. The industry which I'm in, which is textile and apparel, we make 10% of the global carbon emissions in the world, 10%. Fifth worst industry. We love to produce and produce and produce. It's all about cheaper products, short-term deliverables, questionable factories, questionable labor laws. Yes, I know there are a lot of ethical issues there, but it's not easy. All right, because the cheaper the product is, the more difficult it is to be on the other side. On the other side to do these things. So this I would say this dilemma of this constant need for growth.
Yeah.
constant need for growth, that I need to keep on growing my business. Well, I've been thinking for the past, let's say, 2 years, again, as a branded person, from a responsibility perspective, that as a brand, what is your responsibility in this? You know, and your responsibility is all about, and I'll talk more about this. I met an incredible gentleman a few months ago who actually resonated with me, what he's saying. I mean, he's really one of my, I would say, my new gurus. Okay. And yeah, I've been thinking about what can brands do actually to circumvent the issues. All right. Is there a way to grow? Is there a way to grow your top line and your revenues without creating more shit? Excuse my French, but could you, without creating more product? Is there this constant, and I'm talking about my industry, yeah, textiles and apparel. We have the new entrants who people talk about. Uh, it's all about quick satisfaction, cheaper product. But that means a lot of waste coming through the industry, and I feel that's a big dilemma. Yeah. So how can brands, which are, fashion is a difficult business. Okay, we're like a we always learned it's like a movie business. Yeah, it is what you're launching in the next season. How do you do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of it is about creating products which last for a long time. It's about creating products which are transparent in terms of pricing. It's about creating products which are less about creating pollution. But how can we produce less without compromising growth? And a gentleman I met with, I will talk about him. I mean, his name is Bob Sheard, but I think he's found some answers in this. So yeah, I think that today's leaders are really about having that challenge between short term and long term. And on a very high level, KG, on a very high level, if you think about countries, countries are made up of brands, right? If you think about countries, they are made out of brands. Brands make countries. If you think about United States, you think immediately about Apple, and you think about Microsoft, you think about technology, you think about Coca-Cola. These are brands. You think about if you think about our country in Holland, or you think about Heineken, you think about the banks, you think about Royal Dutch Shell, etc., etc. If you think about France, you think immediately in my industry about the Hermes of the world, about the Louis Vuitton of the world. So they actually create the food. It's about brands which create a country's ethos, right? If you think about our country, where I originally came from, India, yeah, brands are about creating those kinds of perception about what a country is all about. And brands, to me, have a huge responsibility in the future about, I call it this leadership and ethics dilemma. What do you do? And nobody has the right answer. There's no right or wrong. It's about you. It's about a long-term vision going forward, right? How many people do we have in the world today? About 8.2 billion. That's the population of the world today. I think all the people who have got more wisdom are probably saying to yourself that in the next 40 or 50 years, that number's going to go to 10 billion plus. That's 2 billion people more in this world. And we need to start figuring out that, listen, boys, you brand guys have to take some responsibility about this. It's about containing supply. It's not about continuously supplying all the stuff. Find a way to stop the demand. Find a way to it's not coming from a demand perspective. Yeah. So it won't happen during my lifetime, but at least if some of us who are brand guys have the responsibility to work with people who are the thought leaders of the industry about how do they do this, maybe we get somewhere. I don't know. Maybe we get somewhere.
Ashish, this is such a master class. I'm scribbling away notes seriously. So you're talking about nation building and brands making up the ethos of entire nations. You're talking about planning for the future, looking at sustainability beyond the short-term profit. You're talking about how you look at brands and organizations and how you help steer them for the future by looking at longer term and even industries as a whole. So not just teams but organizations, not just organizations, but entire industries and sectors, not just industries and sectors, but countries and the planet as a whole. And look at the breadth of your vision. And one of the things that I really thought was my drop was countries are made of brands and brands define national ethos. I'm particularly fascinated because I came across a very interesting example lately. Of course, as a lawyer, one of the things I've noticed is sustainability is such a hot topic, as you correctly pointed out, for fashion and textile. A lot of that conversation is currently focused on offsetting responsibility and figuring out how to delve with the reporting and auditing pressures. Those
Yeah.
in of itself put tremendous pressure on organizations, and they balance that against the demand of the customers for more fresh product lines for every season, what is trendy. And against all of that, I recently came across something that I thought perhaps you're already looking into because I know you enjoy this stuff. I came across the idea that using AI, you could actually seed ideas into consumers' minds and markets on what's coming up. For instance, the example I heard a speaker talk about was you have a huge stock of jade green lehengas. You can actually use AI to seed that in Pinterest and other places. And so that it starts seeping into the consciousness of consumers already, even before you release it. All of a sudden, you see jade reed lehengas pop up all over your TikTok, all over your Instagram. And then when you release it, it's there's already a market. So essentially using AI to create a market. And as you were speaking, I was thinking perhaps AI could be the answer to some of the really profound questions you're raising. As someone who's a conscientious leader thinking about the future of the planet, someone who's worried about the industry and the sector and very conscious about how brands shape all of these things, the industries, the countries themselves. I wonder if AI could help you create more sustainability awareness in consumers where they are excited about collaborating with you and partnering with you to create fashion and embrace fashion that is more planet friendly. I wonder
Yeah.
if that's some of those conversations you'll have with your friend Bob Shear, did you say?
Bob Sheard, yeah, he's a brand strategist, and I've known him for the past, let's say, 8 to 10 years, and every time I meet him, I'm fascinated by the way he thinks. He is he's written a book which is fascinating called The Brand New Future.
The lessons you shared are relevant for every professional, no matter what size of team they're leading, or even if they're only leading themselves. The because that's my next question is what's your advice to professionals on how to build cultures of integrity in their teams and organizations as they grapple with competing priorities and diverse stakeholders? Because the objective of this podcast, Ashish, is to invite successful leaders like yourself to share how you do this. How do you both succeed and stay aligned to your values and help your teams be good leaders, ethical leaders? You do this well, you make it sound easy. So, what's your advice to professionals who are looking to build cultures of integrity?
Um, Again, we got to keep it simple, otherwise it becomes difficult. It's always starts with the leader. You've got to set the example. You got to set the example. So that's the starting point. Do the leaders of the organization, or even in the family, or even within your friends, do you set the standards for, are you the example? You've got to start with that. And I don't talk about an organization, KG. I talk about your friends. I talk about your family. It's about really walking the talk, right? And saying, listen, if this is integrity, what should we be doing? All right. And that is a dialogue which is not a one-time dialogue. It's a non-stop dialogue, 24/7. Yeah. And you've got to walk the talk. So that's, I would say, starting point, number one. And people, they'll, the Gen Zs are coming in the world. They're going to be bigger than anybody we know, right? I mean, we are from the baby boomers age. I mean, whatever our time is, but the Gen Zs are going to rule the world. All right. And it's our responsibility. And they look at different things. All right. So that's one point, is you're starting with your own leadership. Secondly, I would say, I always equate things not to organizations. Organizations for me are like a human being. They evolve. All right. And next one after transparency is you need to have at least traceability and transparency in this. All right. When I mean by transparency and traceability is that um, do companies have a clear role and responsibility defined about what you're supposed to do? What are your do's and don'ts? Okay. And I call it the cultural do's and don'ts. Yeah, that defines you. Give you a simple example. I was busy with a startup 5 years ago, and we were just three of us. That's it. And I had the vision that we're going to have 100 people. How do you do that? Right. So I said to the gentleman who was my CEO at that time, I said, listen, before we go all gung-ho and start hiring people, I think the first thing we need to define is what is our cultural values. Let's do that before we go and hire the fourth person, because whoever we're going to bring in is going to come into our family, right? And that person has got to live the values which we are talking about. So before we start getting into the fourth individual who comes into the family, we're three of us, let's sit in a room for 2 days and let's hash it out, because you come from a different background, I come from a different background, and the other person comes from a different background. Let's find the commonality. Let's find the commonality about what drives us. What is it that basically builds this community of people who are focused on doing the right things? Yeah. And that's when I was involved in starting the health, and I was involved in the gym business. Yeah, which is fundamentally about changing people's lives, about learning and eating and living well. It's about living healthy.
Yes.
And yeah, we did that. And as we brought in more people, they walked and lived the values which we created, And so that's one. One is leadership from the top. Second, in setting examples of the do's and don'ts within your system. And anytime, I've always told the teams, I said, guys, anytime you have an issue where you are confused about your actions, look at your cultural values. Answers are in there. You will never go wrong. If that's your guide. You will face a lot of issues as you go through challenges in business. But whenever you need to make a decision, look at those 4-5 values and say, where is my answer in this? And if you can live that, hey, you're already doing a lot. And if you can take 50% of that, I will pat myself in the back and all of us to say, hey, guys, we did it. So that's number two or three, or whatever you call it. And then the one which I have been exposed to, again, from the Mexx days, is something known as, can you reward integrity? It's a damn tough one.
Yeah.
Damn tough one. When I talk about rewarding integrity, it's not about the what or it's about the how. How do you get there?
Yes.
Right? So it's a tough one. I mean, people have devised, there are many people who know much more about incentive systems than I do. But there are systems in the world known as the smart systems, et cetera, but it's all about numerics. Okay. But can you find a way to reward people through living the values, living the cultures? And that's the how. Yeah. Difficult to measure, maybe not. Teams do it. Let's do a 360-degree evaluation and see how this person is evaluated. So brings me to an interesting, I was involved with a business in the health and fitness, gentlemen, a business called Anytime Fitness. All right. And in there, I was in a conference in America, and the owner of the company stood up and told all of us, "You guys are all business leaders running, this group had got 7,000 gyms in the world, or what, massive. You are always measuring your success with revenue and profit. And you applaud yourself, clap yourself, how good I am. And I've reached my revenue target, I've reached my profit target, and that's what you measure by success." He said, "I am the owner of this company. I don't believe that's the real success. The real success will be when you're able to measure the health of your customers. Today, you get a speeding ticket if you go over 100 kilometers. Does anybody give you a speeding ticket if you are overweight? Does anybody give you a speeding ticket if your body metrics are wrong? They don't. That's the how. That's the how. So these are all examples, fascinating stuff. All right. And so, yeah, integrity is all about, listen, there is a purpose in how you do things, but how do you get there is the bigger challenge. And can you do that ethically? Can you do that with real purpose? What I call a clear, it's like taking a thread and you can put the needle through the thread, understanding that origin of DNA of what you are. And if you do that, I guarantee you are going to be very truthful to the world and to yourself.
That's fascinating to me. And,
That's
I notice also as a person who really believes in systems and processes, intuitively, I understand how important what you're talking about is. Perhaps the most important question is, you talked about how do you do this? You, as leaders, you walk the talk. You sit with your team and identify very clearly values. Always guide your teams back, no matter the size of the organization, 100, 200, 2,000. Guide them back to the idea that anytime there's uncertainty, refer back to the values and use that as a guide. And all of this might be something a lot of leadership students are already familiar with. Leaders themselves probably understand these. You're actually digging deeper and saying, okay, but unless we incentivize the right behaviors, integrity will not embed. And you're talking about how do you do that? And you're giving examples of how that might look. For example, in the fitness industry, if you're truly a brand committed to improving lives of your customers, are you incentivizing your customers to do better every day?
Yeah.
How powerful. Ashish, I love the way your mind works.
Oh no, it's not my mind. It's all the environment and the people I've associated with. I'm a little sponge. It's not me alone. It's the amazing amount of people I'm associated with, and I get privileged to be part of and discussion. That's it. Yeah.
You've raised such important questions. You're clearly someone who's very much a future thinker, a futurist. And given that, what excites you these days in terms of the future of the industry?
Oh Lord, this is a $1 million question. Okay, now comes Bob Sheard. So Bob Sheard runs a very interesting brand strategy business in the UK called Fresh Britain. He's done work for 250 brands, and he's written a new book called The Brand New Future. And it's just been launched like a few months ago, and I was privileged to be at the book launch. And obviously, I've heard Bob talk about this over the years, or over the and he basically resonated a lot of what I have believed, but I never knew the answers. Right? It's just in your gut feeling that, my God, your fashion business always running. You read everything, you see everything, but there is no answer. Still, I met Bob, and Bob basically talks about that. He came out and told me. I mean, I've always believed about this brand and continent. He is 100% convinced about it. All right. So I encourage anybody to read this book called The Brand New Future. And he talks about regenerative branding. Regenerative branding. which is that I wish he was on the podcast with you. I mean, you should talk to him. I am not the expert he is, but I've read his book twice, by the way. Yeah, and I said to him the other day, I said, I'm sure there is nobody else in the world who's read your book twice. So he said, actually not. I said, yeah, because the first time I read it, I think I understood it. Second time, I understood it better. And I'm sure the third time I'm going to say, oh God, I can actually do some things about it. All right. So Bob talks about how do brands create growth, regenerative branding, but not by creating more product. And his answer lies in experiences. Okay, so are brands able to get into areas which is very, very close to their credibility and to their DNA, and he does that with he's done 250 brands, and he's able to pinpoint what I call the real DNA of the brand. All right, where its origin, what's the personality, what's the purpose, and therefore the positioning of the brand, and based on that, what is legitimately and credibly allowed for the brand to resonate with the consumer. And from there, you can get into experiences. Yeah, he's busy. We are both busy with a new business model where I'm working with him on doing some work on this. And we are a small team of people. We're trying to create a new future with our new company. And it'll take us a few years. I don't know. Maybe it'll take us 2 years, whatever. But it gives me a purpose of what I'm trying to do. Right. So you asked me the industry in our apparel industry. It's all about finding new ways of reducing waste. It's about creating product which is about more quality and more long term and all that. That I think many people understand. All right. But what people have not yet experienced is how do brands actually create experiences from their original product, but yet keep on growing. That is, read the book, read it once, read it twice. And I encourage thought leaders and people who are responsible for brands to say, listen, I think I read the book and I'm going to do something about it. And if each one of us does a little bit, it's already a lot. It takes 10%, it takes 1% of the people in the world to change the world. It doesn't require 100%. Little bit, a few of us can do what Bob is trying to say. That's why I'm fascinated by his book. We don't have all the answers yet, believe me, but the more I talk to him, the more I discuss with him. And he also is evolving as he moves and he talks to people. So we are in a very live example of doing something which we both are quite passionate about. So I hope that answers a little bit of the challenges and what's happening in the world.
Well, you've whet our appetites now. We're going to watch this space with excitement and curiosity to see what's making you so passionate. You've said some really exciting and optimistic things for the world, talking about regenerative branding and doing something very powerful and much needed in
These are all Bob's words, are not my words. They're all Bob's words.
Very cool. And this is a collaboration with the two of you. So certainly, I think we're all going to watch this space with fascination. So I have Bob's book, The Brand New Future, already, and a big shout out to him. He's featured big on our conversation today. In addition to that, do you have a quote, a book, or an advice that you'd like to share for people who are looking up to you?
Yeah, I have read a book every few years. It's called Ikigai. I love that book. And Ikigai, for people who might not be aware of it, is a Japanese philosophy of how to live more happier and more healthier. And it's an amalgamation of things what the world needs, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, but it's more and what you should earn. But the starting point of the whole thing is that you need to find your reason to be. What gets you out of bed? Yeah. And what got me out of bed when I think this book was written in 2016 or 17, about 10 years ago. And I read it probably every 3-4 years. And every I'm going to read it again now. It kinds of resonates in your mind that what is your reason to be? What is your reason to be? And some of the principles it has, I love. It talks about which really resonates with me. I'm 65 years old and I can't retire. People have asked me, "Hey, are you going to retire? All your friends have retired." I said, you know, no.
Never.
I just got started. I got sort of a lot of work to do. All right, a lot of work to do, but with a purpose. Yeah. And we've all been through after the COVID some difficult times in our lives, and let's do something which is more purposeful for the rest of the time. So ikigai is something I definitely would love to encourage people to read. And a quote which has driven me for many many years is a book it's a quote I had seen when I had walked into a university in America. And I was taking my son for a trip, and it was a quote by Martin Luther King.
Mm.
And when I read it, I said, my God, that's my life. And the quote says that even when you have an idea, even though the staircase is not clear, follow it. Okay, follow it. So that's what go with the path, even though the whole journey is not clear. All right, but if you believe in something, make the first step. Don't wait. All right, if you have that feeling, the universe will work with you to make things happen. Even though you see half the staircase. All right, so that's it's a beautiful quote, and I love that. I tell my colleagues, my friends, that don't retire from life, man. You can retire professionally, but don't retire from life. There's a lot of work to do. That's it from me.
There's so much consistency. You talked about how it was important for you to be transparent. That's your DNA. And I see that consistency throughout. Even the quote you talk about, it's clear why that resonated strongly with you because you are a pioneering leader. You talked about having this map in your heart of your rules, your ethics, your integrity, and you follow that, see where it leads you. Thank you so much. This is such an exciting conversation. I know I'm going to look back over and over
There's
again.
one thing you cannot cover.
Please tell me.
I can talk for an hour about my failures.
Would you like to share one story? I think it'd be so helpful.
Lots of failures in my life. I mean, yeah, I have had failures, I went into a business venture just before the COVID period, which was in this fitness industry, Anytime Fitness. And it's a great business. And I realized I was not for it. I did not understand the business. I had the wrong choice of individuals. People told me, yeah, I think COVID had a lot to do with it. And I said, no, COVID is only an excuse.
Mm.
I made a mistake because of the cultural story. I got associated with people who came into my family who were not culturally driven the way I was. That's why it was a disaster business for me and my family. We lost financially lots of money, and it was a nightmare for me for the past 4 or 5 years. And that's taken a big toll on me. Yeah. But I don't look at it upon a failure. I look at it as learning, to rewind, to fast forward. Okay. So failures are part of human life. All right. It's like a heartbeat. It just go up and down and up and down. If it's a straight line, you might as well be dead. And that's the cover. That's the story. Lots of
Ashish,
failures, but this is a big one.
you just changed my podcast because and now I'm going to include this question. And for those listeners and viewers who have not been as privileged as I have to have a few more conversations with Ashish, I can tell you his life is fascinating, is nothing less than life of pi in terms of just fascinating chapters and all kinds of exciting adventures he's had. And so I have a question for you that I have some context. I know you're, in fact, given all the adventures you've had, you're an incredibly resilient professional, not just a successful one. And what you just described, right? Failure is part of life. It goes up and down. It's like heartbeat. Um, do you have any tips on how to become resilient? Because it can feel pretty catastrophic. COVID has happened. You've invested a lot into your new business idea, given your heart and soul to it, and now big time consequences. And I know, having had this conversation with you just now, you don't always just think about yourself, you think about people around you, think about consequences. So, in such a situation, a profession is feeling devastated and so worried for everybody who'll also perhaps reap the bad consequences of something that didn't succeed. How can they bounce forward the way you're describing? Do you have tips for resilience?
Again, simple.
Mm.
Go back to your values, what you're really good at. I was not good at what I was doing. I was mediocre in what I was doing. That's number one. It was not my skill set, not my environment. So I felt an alien in that environment. So when you're not comfortable, then you stop believing in yourself. And if you stop believing in yourself, then this starts to get affected. So I always say to all my colleagues, all my family, all my friends that in the world, there are 8.2 billion people. Everybody's got 2 arms and 2 legs. Forget the skin color and the racial diversity. What is common is the mind. Your mind can make you a hero or a zero. Keep your mind, believe in yourself, but go back to your mind and go back to your value system. That is going to be your guiding force, your North Star. Believe in that, and the world will conspire to make it happen. That's my only, it's go back to your value systems. It's all about your value system. What do you believe in? And if things are not going correct with your value systems, don't try and change it. It's not going to work. Things should happen naturally. Don't try and, be hard on yourself. Just step back and say it didn't work. There's much more to life. You've got to get 10,000 feet to understand what's happening over here. And the 2 points which are critical in here, ego may not drive you. Ego may not drive you because people hate to accept that they are failed. But you've got to be culturally powerful. This is where I think India has taught me a lot. I come from that background where we as individuals are very strong in terms of our DNA, where we come from. We've been through a hell of a lot of hardships. So this is just one more hardship, but go back to your value system. It will be your guiding principle.
Love that. Goes back to the honesty that you said was very important. You be honest with yourself. This has not succeeded, and here's why. And just being a striver, bouncing forward, focused on the passion. The MLK quote of "follow the path, even if it's not fully clear yet."
Yeah, exactly. It's not rocket science. It's basically that's what it is. I think the quote is about faith is taking the first step. Faith is taking the first step, even when the entire staircase is not clear. Faith is taking the first faith, and faith is about you. That's what it is about. It's Martin Luther King's. So, you've got to there are lots of pearls of wisdoms around in the world. You've got to just pick the right ones for yourself. That's it.
Wow. I mean, this is a masterclass. Ashish,
Thank you.
like me, there are going to be many others who can't get enough of your pearls of wisdom. And so where can people find you? Where do you usually hang out? Is it LinkedIn? Is it your website? Where can people follow your work? And if they wanted to contact you?
I really am not very active on anything. I'm a word of mouth guy.
Okay.
I'm not in social media. I'm not so much in LinkedIn. I'm just when you want to find me, you can find me. My name is not that difficult. It's Ashish. Half the world can't pronounce it, which is brilliant, you know. So yeah, just Google me. You can or look at LinkedIn. You will see my email. You know, I'm not promoting myself. It's not. I don't do that. I am not somebody who says, "Hey guys, look what I have to say." No, if you want to talk to me, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm alive. I'm here. I live in Holland. I've got a global perspective. I've got a lot of global friends. I don't need to market myself. I know who I am. And people who want to resonate with me, they'll talk to me. And maybe what I say don't resonate with them. That's fine. That's fine.
That's right. Ashish is wonderfully responsive and kind. He clearly is a fantastic mentor and guide because I reached out and he was very kind and promptly responded.
No, thank you very much for your kind words, KJ. Really, thank you very much. Enjoyed the questions. I mean, it takes a lot of thoughts to these questions. Very good. You made me think. Thank you.
As we wrap up today's discussion on the human conversation on leadership and ethics, it's clear that integrity and ethics are the cornerstone of leadership. Host Kaumadi Gowda thanks you for joining us in this vital dialogue. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and become a part of the community dedicated to ethical leadership. Share your thoughts and continue the conversation with #TheHumanConversationPodcast.